Welcome, internet homies and random YouTube people. So a few of you guys have been asking me to do top 10 videos. I'm afraid I have commitment issues and I'm really bad at knowing my favorite things. I found out that if I add a bunch of modifiers, it's easier for me. So like, for example, I can't tell you who my favorite artist is, but I can tell you who my favorite female vocalist from Canada who has a child named after interstellar transportation is. So I'm going to do a bit of a specific top 10, and then hopefully I'll get better at doing these. I'm trying to build up to more normal top 10 lists. But for today, we are going to do the top 10 alternative folk bands from Iceland.
Hey, I'm Annie, and this is Why You Should Love Music.
Okay, so why are we doing this? A few reasons. Iceland is like a magical place. I've decided there must be something in the water because population-wise, that country is like tiny, and yet they have so much amazing music coming out of that place. So just to give you, for those of you who don't know, just to give you a ballpark, I live in the United States, which has 50 states, and in one state, in one city that I live nearby, Phoenix, the population of that one city is 4 times the population of the entire country of Iceland. So just to give you a ballpark of what we're talking about, that's the group of people that I'm pulling from, and then of that percentage, how many of them chose music as a profession, and then of that population, how many are inspired by alternative and folk music. So Iceland is really cool. They have a really interesting heritage, and there's a lot of interesting Norse folklore that they pull from a lot, and the vistas and the geography is really inspiring in a lot of their music, I feel. But they also have a really healthy metal population. You guys know they have a lot of famous rock and pop singers out of Iceland, so this was really fun. I was actually really surprised. I actually still had to narrow it down to 10. It's amazing that you can even find 5 good bands from that small and that specific. But I had really, really fun time trying to figure out my top 10, and I want to share it with you. So because I'm doing like artists and groups and singers, like as a general query, I'm going to assume there's at least a few of these that you guys have never heard of, if you're not from Iceland, which you're probably not. So I've gone ahead and I made a Spotify playlist, and I just picked kind of one song from each of these to just give you a real quick introduction to what I'm talking about. So that will be in the description. Feel free to click on that. You can listen to it in the background quietly or listen to it afterwards. Listen to it before. You do you. I don't know. But before we get into it, I just wanted to list a few Icelandic artists and groups who did not make the list, but who I still love. For one reason or another, either their genre was too far outside or I ended up going with something else. But really quickly, I just want to give like a shout out to some amazing Icelandic bands that are not on my list. Apparat Organ Quartet, Agent Fresco, Amina, Bjork, obviously, Bear, sometimes he goes by Bear on his social medias, Brain Police, For Minor Reflection, Mum, Olafur Arnalds, Retro Stetson, the Sugar Cubes, of course, we can't leave them out, the Vintage Caravan, Vogue, Young Karen, Singapore Sling, I'm sure I'm forgetting a bunch. Also, sidebar, I am not Icelandic, I don't understand or speak Icelandic, and I do terribly with Germanic languages, which I realize is ironic since I speak English as my native tongue. But I apologize preemptively for butchering any pronunciations of names or songs or anything that happens to go awry. I sincerely apologize, and it's not because I don't love the culture or the language, it's just because of my ignorance. Okay, without further ado, number 10, Emilíana Torrini. I know that sounds like an Italian name. That's because it is an Italian name. Her father is Italian, but she's Icelandic. Her mother is Icelandic, and she's from Iceland. The song that I picked for the playlist is probably more, you might say, singer-songwriter or indie, but she also some of her other music goes very electronic pop, or she has dabbled in trip-hop. So she's kind of done a lot of different genres of music, but overall I would say her genre would be alternative. So you'll find throughout this playlist, some of them will be more towards rock or more towards indie or more towards folk or more towards singer-songwriter, but they all kind of draw influence from both alternative and folk music, and specifically the songs that I picked for these. Fun fact, she was also a previous member of the band Gus Gus, which is another Icelandic band, which is wonderful, and they didn't make it on this list. Sorry, they're awesome too. Number 9, Low Roar. So this one almost didn't make it on the list because technically Ryan is from California, but Low Roar is an Icelandic band, so when he left the States, he moved to Iceland, and he started a new music project, and if you look it up, it's considered an Icelandic band, and especially the self-titled album is a lot about the influence of the culture, the new culture, and the landscape, and so this music is very much a product in part of Iceland, and I really, 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 really love the music, so I decided to include it. It seemed a shame not to. Okay, I'm cheating again. Number 8 is like 2. Alright, so number 8 is Fang / Seabear. And the reason why I included 2 is because the same guy actually started both. So he started, Seabear is a pretty well-known band out of Iceland, and he actually started that originally as a solo project, but then he kept adding more and more members, so then he started a new project, Fang, as his solo project. And if I had to pick one, I probably like Fang a little bit better, but they're very similar. It's the brainchild of the same guy, so I put them both. The song that I picked for the playlist is from Fang. I probably like the solo project a little bit better, but they're both great, so feel free to check out either of those. Number 7 is Bang Gang. And this, weirdly enough, the project originally started out as like surf music, and then it was kind of steered away more towards like melodic pop and alternative, more towards what it is now. I really love this group. I'm grateful for where they came from musically, but I'm really glad with where they ended up as well. I don't know if that makes sense. Interesting fact, the only consistent member of this group, people have kind of come and gone, but the only consistent member of this group is also one half of Lady and Bird, which is another great group that is half Icelandic, half French. Okay, number 6, Kaleo. You guys know, I love them. I'm sure this is one of the ones that everybody already knows. I kind of don't need to say too much. They've had a lot of success overseas, and with very good reason. There is a certain depth and soul that's just inherent in their music, and I think that's what draws people in so wonderfully. They have this brilliant sort of dichotomy of texture in the music where it feels very smooth and soaring, but it also has a lot of textured depth that has this sort of grit to the vocals, so it's really, really beautiful and really, really interesting. I love it so much. Somebody mentioned to me before, the lead vocalist in Kaleo has a really similar voice to Alex Clare, who you guys know that I love. Okay, number 5 is Ourlives. I'm really biased about this one, and I don't really care. So I discovered this band through Spartan Records. You guys know I love that record label, and John, who's my homie, he owns that record label, and he took a trip to Iceland, and while he was there, he discovered this band and signed them to his label, and we got some records out of it, so thanks for that. The reason why I'm so heavily biased towards this one is that it became very personal to me. It came into my life at a really critical time and pretty dramatic time, and so this was one that I leaned on heavily. Some of you guys know I was serving jury duty on a murder trial, and it was pretty intense, as one might imagine, way more than I would have imagined before. But I was in total isolation, separate from everyone and everything, had to put my life on hold for several months, and it was a really impactful time. And that's when I discovered this album, and it became a really great tool for me to kind of connect and cope and learn. This album is probably my favorite of theirs. I forgot, Den of Lions is the name of the album that I'm talking about. But it became a really important part of my own personal history, and a really wonderful, it's a beautiful sadness, and it's very introspective and very reflective, and quite wonderful. Number 4. I can't believe this is down at number 4. When I was first thought of making this list, I thought for sure he would be like 2 or 3. But number 4 is Ásgeir, and he is amazing. His music has been called folktronic, so that's very fun. His most recent album is amazing. I love it so much. And fun fact, he used to play guitar in a band called The Lovely Lion. So that's another Icelandic band that's not on my list. Number 3 is Valdimar. This is a group that does almost all of their songs. The lyrics are in Icelandic, which is wonderful and beautiful. The song that I chose for this playlist has been translated into English for those of you who are weird about only listening to music in English or whatever. But I actually had a really hard time picking which track I wanted to include in the playlist for this one. So you should definitely check out their 2012 album. It has a lot of great stuff on it. I don't think you'll be disappointed. Number 2 is Of Monsters and Men. Listen, I'm sorry. I'm not sorry. Is another one I'm unapologetically biased towards. I love Of Monsters and Men so much. The artistry and the beautiful poetic nature of their music is just ridiculous to me. Okay, so I have their first album over there. I loved their first album a lot, but Beneath the Skin, that album just sucked all the air from my lungs and exploded my heart, and I'm happy to let it do so for the rest of my life. It's just wonderful and amazing. Ugh, Iceland, if this is what you do, this makes me want to move to Iceland, going through and reliving all this wonderful music and all of the beautiful inspiration that I've had from these songs. Really, I at least have to go visit there at some point. I should learn Icelandic first, though. I'll put that on my list. And number 1 will surprise exactly 0 people. Listen, I'm making a list about Icelandic bands. If I didn't put Sigur Rós at the top of the list, I'm pretty sure you'd all come after me with torches and pitchforks or something. But besides that, I genuinely really love this music. It's truly incredible. I mean, okay, they use a bowed guitar. How do you not love that? You have to love them. You kind of have to love them. They're amazing. And what a legacy. If you think of Iceland and you think of Sigur Rós, that's a beautiful thing. That's a great credit to the country and to the music community that's there. All of these bands do credit to their country. Okay, so that's my story. Now, anytime somebody makes a list of only 10 things, there's going to be tragedies, travesties, gross oversights. So here's what I want you to do. Drop me some comments. Tell me which ones of these you liked, which ones I missed that I should have included on the list, and let me know your thoughts and feelings generally. Feel free also to give me any thoughts or ideas about what you would like to see on this channel in the future. And if you liked any of these artists that I talked about, give this video a thumbs up and subscribe for more music content coming at you every single week. Bless.